Back to our live stream on Fiji Village. Privileged to have a good set of panelists and the fact that we have these gentlemen here to address the real issue at hand. We are grateful that they've taken out their time to come forward for this final session for today, which is on Talanoa session on what we should be doing in terms of illicit drugs, what is happening at the moment, and our action plans going forward, solution-based actions for the next 12 months as part of the counter-strategy policy that will be discussed and finalized and taken to Cabinet after tomorrow's discussions. And as the theme has been that yes, dialogue has been held and dialogue can continue to be held, but we need action and we need urgent action now. Our panel, Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Siromi Turanga. We have the UN Office of Drugs and Crime Regional Representative, Mr. Collie Brown. We have Republic of Fiji Military Forces Director Legal, Colonel Kitione Tuinausara, and the Acting Commissioner of Police, Juki Fong Chu, and we also have the Assistant DPP, Meli Vosawale. I'm your moderator for this session. My name is Vijay Narayan. I'm the News Director for Fiji Village, and thank you to those who have taken out their time to attend this session and those who are joining us on live stream on Fiji Village. So we'll start off with the presentations first before we start off the Talanoa session. I'll give the floor to the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Siromi Turanga. Thank you.
Pinaka Vijay, to the panelists, I'm just grateful to be here. There is a function that I was supposed to launch at 3 p.m., but because of, by virtue of the importance of this topic, I choose to be here. Because I believe this is the important conversation we are having in terms of how we combat the drug problem we have. My views has been expressed in the media. It's also been said by the police. For me, its issue really is what we can do. Acknowledge the problem, then move on. A lot of work to be done. Someone asked me, we should strengthen the law. I said, no. The current penalty under the Illicit Drugs Control Act is a life imprisonment or $1 million fine or both. But then there is a tariff which corresponds to the amount, the weight of the drugs, and DPP can expound on that. I'm here basically to echo the government's position and also reflect to some of the views expressed by society that the coalition government is, like any responsible government will do, will stand up and say, we denounce the trade of drugs. Short and simple. Yes, you yet to see some real action, but I can tell you it's coming. In my role as Minister of Justice, I've been doing some rounds, talking to people, visiting some institutes. Yesterday, I was at St. Giles, just to try and get some facts as to or the magnitude of this problem. This is the data provided in terms of substance-induced admission for the past 6 years. 2015, there were only 54. 2016, it increased to 82. 2017, increased to 122, and continues to increase as for 2024. Total admission of 81 per month. 22 were history of substance abuse, and at times increased to 30 per month. I'm advised that induced substance abuse admission is higher, to the point that the total admission a month can be given in 1 week. So the problems St. Giles Hospital faces is that some of their patients had to be relieved, discharged as they address this issue. That's just one small aspect of it. There is it's been for it has been in the legislative program of government for some years now. The other is the substance abuse control regulations. Initially at one stage it was with the Ministry of Women, later on with the Ministry of Education, and until recently there is a policy decision that we're not going to introduce a new bill altogether, but what it should do is a regulation to regulate the sale of substance abuse. And what I'm talking here is about glue sniffing, which is random. It's not controllable, and something that we aim to do. One of the challenges as Attorney General and Minister of Justice in terms of law reform is to trying to impress upon the ministers that they must take charge of the laws that they regulate. Over the years, it's always been the Attorney General. But really it's the minister. It should be driven by the ministry. The ministry must see it as an urgent need, put priorities, work program, then move it through consultation stage. After consultation stage, then to cabinet for endorsement of a review or proposed law. Then after cabinet approval, then you go another full round of consultation. After the full round of consultation, then you come back. That's when you liaise with the drafters at the Attorney General's chambers. That's the tail end of the legislative process. Is to impress upon the key ministries that they must put this as a matter of urgency, emphasizing to them the need. We will hear from the Ministry of Home Affairs. That's what they have in place. We have been discussing, for your information. Although there is nothing probably concrete you may have heard, there has been a general discussion, my office with the Ministry of Home Affairs, with other relevant agencies, in terms of how we handle or confront the problems we have. In my personal view, many of these social problems we face predominantly originate or impinges on the Itauke community. 70-20% are in prison. For those inmates in St. Giles, it's also the influence of the Itauke population is greater. My point is this: if you're going to address this issue, whether it's the issue of drugs, whether the issue of AIDS, we have to involve the social structures within the Itauke community to effectively handle this. Last week I was in Ngau. I didn't go to Ngau because I'm from Nairai, Olomaiviti. I went to Ngau because I was invited by the Divisional Methodist Church minister on the issue of drugs. Accompanied me is one of the senior police officers who is involved in terms of their awareness. It's the first time ever for the island of Ngau, Nairai, and Batiki, 3 islands, with a gathering of almost 600 people to hear the nuts and bolts of the drug issue we have. We spoke directly, boldly, tell them that if you're going to entertain, if you're going to ignore, if you're going to treat it as just any other social issue, it's going to affect our future generations. And this point has been made many times. It is the future generations. One troubling factor is that when you go to these islands, just like any other rural areas, there is already a sparse population. Villages are empty. Then when you talk about drugs and what it can do to a person, to a group of people, then you basically making unproductive people who are sick. And that's why I strongly urge the religious leaders and the Vanua elders to take up a very positive role, cooperative role, in terms of fighting this tragedy. And that's basically what government is doing. Last week, Assistant Minister Honorable Tumbuna, PM's office, was in Ovalau on a totally to open a or close a workshop in terms of forestry. He started off by emphasizing the point I had raised last week about drugs. So what we're doing, the ministers, is any space that is available to us, like today, will advocate for members of the community to stand up, to support the police, to inform the police of what is going on in the community. Police, over and over time again, have emphasized they are limited by the resources. But it's the partnership with the community that helps. Some of us, we know the people that are hanging around the shops. We observe that the van or the vehicles that come by and stop, then move to another point. We probably know youngsters in the community who may be involved. The question is, what are we doing about it? And that's what we are doing as a part of the strategy for the coalition government while we wait for a national strategy to come from the Ministry of Home Affairs. We are taking action. We are loud. We are trying to raise awareness in the community. It is through community partnership that's how we're going to combat this problem. As I said again, it's the forum like this that generate discussion, and it needs to be filtered down to the other sectors of the community. And I want to start off the discussion this afternoon by just sharing those views, and I'll be open to any further questions from you. Pinak.
Thank you very much, Honorable Attorney General, and that sets the scene, as he says, that it's time for action. We need to grab this issue and ensure that all the solutions being looked at are addressed, and that's the counter strategy policy with an action plan. I've been told by the Ministry of Home Affairs, Choili is saying it'll be clearly articulated tomorrow based on real action plans for the next 12 months with timelines on what has to be achieved. Our next speaker is the Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Chu Kivong Chu. And thank you, Acting Commissioner. You have the floor now.
Yeah, thank you, Vijay. Drugs is the common enemy we all are fighting against. And prior to the big seizures we heard earlier this year, police has been in the forefront fighting this war against drugs. And we acknowledge the various media platforms, the various stakeholders that are raising these issues on drugs. As I've stated, it is a common enemy that we all need to reduce within our society, especially here in Fiji. And the Fiji police force cannot do it alone. Yeah. And what we have been doing over the past years, opportunity that is given our way, especially when we are invited to a festival, to a community policing engagement, we take this awareness to the people, yeah, and share it with them, the issues that is affecting the people of Fiji. And every day we make an arrest. Either it's green or white. Just imagine, every day, apart from other offenses that we all know. But drugs, we make an arrest almost every day. And as I've stated, we need people to assist the police, you know. I know we are limited in numbers. We cannot do it alone. But through partnership and through information sharing, we have gone our way to make arrests. A typical example is the 2 big seizures that happened earlier this year. That was just from an information on the street that police have picked up. And whoever the police picked up that information from, we went down to a particular location. with the raid conducted and that seizure that happened, plus the other one that followed after 1 week later. Yeah. But those cases now are still pending in court. I know over the years too, there are issues that have been raised, the involvement of police in these drug issues that we all have here in Fiji. And I will not hide the fact, because it has been highlighted in the media that police involved in drugs. And what we have done, we follow the due process. Some of us have been taken to court, they've been found guilty, they have been kicked out of the organizations. Some, they are still pending in court. And whatever the court decides, we'll take our cue from there. Yeah. We cannot have police officers that are involved with drugs. I know it's a big issue. Yeah. And if we want to move forward, we need to have a clean organization that is supportive in trying to minimize drugs, especially here in Fiji, plus the future generations that we all have, that is the younger generations. I have a stats here just to highlight to you on the age group that since 2019. Looking at the age from 18 to 35, 2019 we had 754. These are registered cases with the Fiji Police Force. 2020, 938. And 2021 we had the reductions of 660. Then 2022, 755. 2023, 951. And as of this year, from January to April, the age group between 18 to 35 is 397. And these are the age group that is supposed to be our future generations of the people of Fiji. And as mentioned by the Honorable AG on the ethnicity, and I'll just touch base on the E-to-K group. 2019 was 874, 2020 1080, and 2021 it reduced again to 825, 2022 990, 2023 1214, and as of January to April 2024 we have 465. That is only E-to-K. Yeah. But looking at over the years, the cases that we have registered from 2019 to 2024, 2019 we had 1275, 2020 1501, then 2021 1032, 2022 1236, 2023 1615, January to April as of this year 641. So for us in the Fiji Police Force, we cannot relax ourselves, especially in the war against drugs. As someone asked me, are we losing the fight against drugs? I said, we will only lose the fight against drugs if we never do anything about it. But as for us, we are mandated to carry out those tasks and will continue to do those. Despite some of our officers have been labeled against involvement with drugs, we will continue until we all active police officers leave the organization one day. So I'm thankful to this kind of platform, various stakeholders that are speaking against drugs. This is somehow an awareness to the general public how dangerous is the drugs that is currently we are facing here in Fiji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Acting Police Commissioner, and we will definitely continue our discussions after all the presentations by the panelists. You're watching the live stream on Fiji Village. This is our final session on supply reduction, maintaining law and order and security of Fiji. Our next speaker is the regional representative from the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, Mr. Collie Brown. Collie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vijay. And I have to correct it for the record. I'm the Pacific Advisor for transnational organized crime. I certainly don't want my regional rep in Bangkok to think I'm here masquerading as him, especially when he looks nothing like me and I look nothing like him. Actually, I'm cuter than him, I think. Anyways, no, thank you very much. And I think just listening to the preceding speakers, it was just sort of jumbling a couple of things in my head. Specifically, I wanted to address number 6 on the screen here, establishment of a narcotics court, and give some thoughts around that. But before I do that, one of the things, and again, as I listen to, and particularly the acting compol, when I listen, and not only to him, but also to others around, and you read in the media every day, there's a report of some sort around drugs. And yes, there is a problem in Fiji, but when I sort of try to put it into context, because I've worked in countries, where drugs have taken root into all aspects of society, that's creeped into upper levels of government, and in some cases, people would regard it as a narco state. Fiji is not there. Thankfully, Fiji is not there. Does Fiji have a problem? Yes. But at the same time, I think Fiji has some ways to go. And I don't want to minimize the issue because I think the institutions and so on certainly can withstand some of those threats. At the same time, I think it's really important that, as I mentioned this morning, that there are really some robust steps taken to address this. Law enforcement, and again, as I talked about some of the demand issue this morning. One of the things as well, before I get into that, is as I reflect on, particularly when the commission was talking about the arrest that they're making every day. And so I think about what is the implication of that for the rest of the criminal justice system. Of course, police detect, identify crimes, and including issues, drug possession and drug trafficking. Yes, arrests must be made. But at the same time, we have to think about what does that mean for the rest of the system. How robust is the rest of the system to withstand the influx of people coming in? And so, take an example, corrections, your correction system. What might that mean for your correction system? I was at a conference last year in New Zealand, and one thing that stuck with me, they were talking about disruption of organized crime. And one of the comments that one of the senior police officials made is that in the past, when they would disrupt these criminal networks, and the individuals would be prosecuted, charged, prosecuted, and sentenced and incarcerated, and they would all high five and basically see that as a point of, as an end point. One of the things that they did realize, though, is that because these guys are in prison, that doesn't mean that they went and found the first church choir to join. That they're continuing with their bad behaviors. They're bringing their networks inside the prison, which then create management issues for the prison system. Along with that, if you think about low-level offenders, so your drug addicted folks who are arrested because they have possession of drugs. What does that mean? Because one, you have where you may then have the traffic into the prison increase, and the back door, the traffic out the back door may not match the traffic coming into the front door, and so you end up with an overcrowded prison system. and certainly you can't bill your way out of it. So, you know, how do you then creatively begin to look at this in terms of adequately and strategically and good policies in terms of addressing this? I think those are questions that, you know, we have to think about and to look at to see how do we accomplish holding people accountable who are committing crimes, at the same time managing the impact on the rest of the criminal justice system. I think those are questions that I think we need to raise. And so certainly as one of the interventions in the national drug strategy is the establishment of a narcotics, or commonly known as drug courts. And so I wanted to just take a few minutes in terms of just providing an overview of what that might look like if that is the route to go down. As many of you might know, drug courts started back in 1989 in Miami, in the U.S. And since then has proliferated not only nationally but internationally as well. I remember when I was in the U.S., I worked with a court in Honolulu to set up a drug court in Honolulu, except that was what we call a dual diagnosis court. Because what we realized is that, and what the data would tell us, is that most people with drug problems also have mental health problems. And so drug courts, as they were set up, were primarily targeted to people with drug addiction issues without any attention to their mental health problems. And so what started happening is that these specialized courts, other specialized courts, started developing mental health courts, for example, and then dual diagnosis court, which was able to then accommodate both your mental health and your substance abuse problems. Now, when we talk about a court, we're not necessarily talking about a building, a structure, a standalone facility. What we're talking about are dockets or calendars, court calendars, where the judge typically would, on particular days of the week, particular times of the day, would set aside that time to oversee those cases, those drug cases that were in drug courts. So you have some courts that you had some judges who became full-time drug court judges within the criminal court. You had some judges who they did their criminal cases, you know, on Tuesdays, and on Wednesdays they did drug court. And so you had the variations there that took place. Now, there were two types in terms of how these were distributed, right? So you had your pre-adjudication cohort, and you had your post-adjudication cohort. Most drug courts require that you plead guilty, or at least you acquiesce to the facts of the case. And once you then enter into drug courts after some screening, having a case management team that includes a police officer, the social worker, and a case manager who's basically the manager for, you know, overseeing your case and so on. And you then would be screened, you'd be tested, urine tested, and you would enter into the court. Once you're into that docket, if I most better say, once you enter into that docket, you are then placed on a schedule, and these we would regard as status appearances, where periodically, whether it's once a month, twice a month, depending on on your case, you would appear before the judge. One of the elements, and one of the main elements of drug courts, is your access to treatment. And so once you've pled guilty, you go into court, you go into that docket. One of the requirements, one of the main requirements, is that you go into treatment. And your treatment, your success through drug courts is to the extent that you are complying with treatment, you are going to treatment, and you're showing success in treatment. And so those status hearings that would occur is where you would come back in before the judge, with the social worker or the case manager, who would give a report as to your participation in treatment. Now, a couple of things may happen there, because if you're not participating in treatment or you're missing treatments, and that is reported to the judge has a series of options, of sanctions that he may apply. One could be, and they typically refer to as graduated sanctions. So it could include a verbal reprimand, where the judge dresses you down in court. Young man, you better straighten up and what have you. Or it could include you spending a night in jail, a weekend in jail, and up to you being revoked from the drug court and then sent to jail. So essentially, you have the criminal justice system. The accountability for that is where you have the criminal justice system overseeing your case while you're in drug court. And so it's a diversion program. It's intended to be a diversion program because you don't go to jail. Now, that's a pre-adjudication. A post-adjudication situation. In instances where you have a post-adjudication as well, it may reduce the period of the sanction that you might get. So you may then get probation, or it may shorten the period of time that you would spend in a kind of detention. But primarily, it's a diversion program that prevents you from going into detention in the first place. Now, with a pre-adjudication situation is where you come into court, and some courts, you have so many variation of drug courts. Some courts you don't have to plead guilty. The charge is held over your head during the period that you are in the drug court and you're in treatment. So that charge being held over your head is part of the motivation. And so there have been criticisms of drug courts, which says that it's coercive, because if I'm faced with two options, you go to jail you go through the regular prosecution route, and you possibly go to jail, or you take this drug court option, and you don't go to jail, then the person is going to, as some people argue, that is going to take the least severe sanctions. But I must say that drug court is probably one of the most researched criminal justice intervention in the U.S. And it has constantly and consistently shown that it works, that it's successful. But it comes with the requirement that you have to have the relevant services available to the individual for the individual to go into. Because if you don't have that, then you're essentially setting the person up. You're setting the person up for failure because there is no service to go into, or the service is lacking, or they don't have access to service. So these are considerations that really has to go into whether or not that's the route to go into. Obviously, it may require some revision to your laws to accommodate that. When I was in Indonesia, we actually, Indonesia was interested in drug courts, and we supported them to do a complete assessment of their legislative framework, landscape, to see whether or not drug courts could be accommodated. And it could. They eventually didn't go that route because there were other consideration that they had to, that they decided not to go down that road. But I think these are things that have to be considered. It's not just the person going into court, but it's also the access to the services, to the treatment that is really critical to the success of the individual going in. So I'll just stop there. Tomorrow we'll have a more elaboration of drug courts by the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, who will do a presentation on that. But I wanted to sort of just provide some flavor overview of what that is for this session.
Thank you. Thank you, Collie, and that's another proposal there to look at the drug court system in the US, and definitely when we go into this Talanoa session, we have the Attorney General and also the DPP's office here. The police will have their response, and of course the RFMF and anyone else who wants to contribute to the discussions that will be taken forward for further discussions before agreeing to the counter strategy tomorrow. We will now go to the Republic of Fiji Military Forces Director Legal and Colonel Kitione Tuinausara. Colonel, thank you very much.
Apologies from the Commander of the Republic of Fiji Military Forces to the organizers. He couldn't make it, he's overseas at the moment. So as usual, he sent me last minute advice for me to attend this noble forum here today. As soon as I walked in, I saw Narcotics Court. I never really Googled it, but I've been wondering about it when we have these discussions on drugs in this country. But when I saw it, it gives me hope. And hearing from you, sir, I think that's something that we should seriously consider. And after this session, I'll surely go and Google and research a bit more. Commander had prepared a paper which I'll bore you with for the next 10 minutes. From last month's interview on Fiji One by the gentleman moderator, the commander had mentioned that drugs is becoming a national security issue. It is a national security issue. I think most of us, if you are not in the space of a security business, it might have flew right over your head. But when an issue is a national security issue, it sends a warning bell to the powers that be that they need to turn their attention into that particular security issue, because it will weaken governance and it will disrupt our everyday life in this beautiful country called Fiji. I was informed that I have 10 minutes to share this paper with you. Bear with me, please. The escalating drug epidemic gripping our society necessitates the direct involvement of the Republic of Fiji military forces to combat the issue, potentially utilizing firearms as a deterrent and a security measure. However, the potential risks associated with the RFMF's engagement in this capacity, particularly due to insufficient legislative support, underscore the critical need to strategize the RFMF's involvement effectively to assess the drug crisis in a pressing nation security concern with utmost caution and accountability. The commander is one of the chief security advisors to government. Please have that in the background. Under Section 131, he has the responsibility for security, safety, and well-being. I know there's a lot of talks on Section 131, but let's contextualize that particular section to the issue at hand that we are discussing at the moment. Problem statement: the growing drug problem in our society has reached a critical stage, prompting the consideration of direct involvement of the Republic of Fiji military forces to combat the issue. The involvement of the RFMF as a deterrent and security measure raises concerns about the risk associated with the RFMF's intervention in the absence of sufficient legislative support. It is imperative to strategically determine how the RFMF can best address the drugs crisis as a national security concern while mitigating the potential repercussions. This is his paper, not mine. Questions: what are the key factors contributing to rapid escalation of the drug problem in our society, warranting the RFMF's direct involvement and the use of firearms? How can the RFMF effectively use firearms as a deterrent and security measure in combating the drug issue while ensuring adherence to legal and ethical standards? What are the potential risks and challenges for the RFMF's involvement in addressing the drug crisis without adequate legislative support? And how can this be mitigated? In what ways can the RFMF be strategically utilized to confront the drug problem as a national security concern, considering the sensitive nature of military intervention in civilian matters? What legislative frameworks and mechanisms need to be established or strengthened to support and regulate the RFMF's involvement in combating the drug epidemic while safeguarding human rights and legal boundaries? How can collaborative efforts between the RFMF, law enforcement agencies, government institutions, community stakeholders be coordinated and leveraged to effectively address the drug crisis and enhance national security concerns? I'm listening to the Commissioner of Police's speech. What has happened since this drug issue has been raised, in the last few months or few years? Having lunch with Talanoa Vishendru, we remember going to a lot of workshops and conventions regarding, the drug trade in the Pacific from 10, 15 years back. Nothing has happened. And I'm thankful to the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime for coming up with this initiative, which hopefully, can drive the issue forward. It is a model I shared with him, but, we have to design a model that works for Fiji. And listening to the Commissioner, I know that this can happen. We can assist the police in combating the drug problem that we have at the moment. Those questions that I just read out from the Commander RFMF, I sort of disagree with him on some of of his views, but we will deal with that later. Let me continue. The pervasive threat of illicit drugs has emerged as a pressing concern, rapidly infiltrating and destabilizing our society, with the drug problem reaching alarming proportions and posing significant risks to public health, safety and national security. There is a growing call for decisive action to address this complex issue. It's not a narco state yet, but if we keep on sleeping, it will become a narco state. In response to the escalating drug epidemic, the proportion of direct involvement of the Republic of Fiji military forces has put forth a potential strategy to combat drug-related crimes and activities. This proposal includes the utilization of firearms as a deterrent and means of enhancing security measures in tackling the drug issues. However, the prospect of the RFMF's engagement in such capacity raises critical questions regarding the risks involved, particularly in the absence of robust legislative support and clear guidelines governing military intervention in civilian matters. As we navigate this juncture, where the drug problem has evolved into a significant national security concern, it becomes imperative to explore how the RFMF can be effectively mobilized and utilized to confront the challenges posed by these illicit drugs while ensuring accountability, legality, and protection of fundamental human rights. This introduction sets the stage for an in-depth examination of the complexities surrounding the RFMF's potential role in addressing the drug epidemic and an essential consideration that must be taken into account to safeguard both societal well-being and military integrity. This paper is being prepared to be presented to our relevant ministry and to government. I won't bore you with the details. I'll just give you a preview there, then I will go on to our suggestions. I'm happy the Honorable Attorney General is here. We know this place very well. We were both students here in 1987. First, strengthen legislative frameworks. Enhance existing laws and regulations to provide clear guidance of the RFMF's mandate, authority and responsibilities in drug control efforts. Establish robust oversight mechanism, accountability structures, procedural safeguards to ensure compliance with legal standards and human rights. Number two, prioritize collaboration and partnership. Foster collaboration among the RFMF, law enforcement agencies, government institutions, and communities to create a unified and coordinated response to the drug crisis. Develop joint strategies, share resources and expertise, and engage with diverse stakeholders to maximize the impact of intervention and promote the sustainable incomes. I know it's the same thing all over and over again, but we need to move forward. And if we have to say it again, then let it be. 3, promote community engagement and empowerment. Implement community-driven initiatives that raise awareness, build capacity, and mobilize support for drug intervention, treatment, and recovery programs. Empower communities to take ownership of anti-drug efforts, participate in decision-making process, and advocate for policy changes that address the underlying social determinants of drug abuse. 4, embrace a multi-faceted approach. He has spoken on this in the past few months, that we need to have a task force. In our belief that this is a national security problem, a national security issue, we need to have a task force. Last year's Attorney General's Attorney General's Conference, the British Ambassador or the British High Commissioner straight out mentioned that the British government is ready to help. We need to take it on board. Our partners in Australia and New Zealand, under the Australia, under the Valley Initiative, there's help out there. We just need to grasp it. 5, uphold ethical standards and human rights. And that's self-explanatory. By implementing these recommendations, Fiji can leverage the RFMF's capacities effectively and responsibly in addressing the drug problem as a national security concern. A balanced and integrated approach that prioritizes collaboration, community engagement, legal compliance, ethical conduct can pave the way for sustainable progress in combating the drug epidemic and creating a safer, healthier, and more resilient society for all its citizens. That's the end of his paper. Before I came to present his speech, I sent him a message, and I will share that with us before I take my seat. I asked him, "What's your view, sir? Why is there inaction?" His answer is, "People don't know where to start. There is no strategic and operational intent from the government. That is the first sign of inaction. It's all words. Everyone knows that police need help. They have their internal strifes. Why is still there no compol? Is government looking for someone that fits their agenda? We need to set the right priorities. Our first obligation should be the safety and well-being of the people." Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Colonel Tuino Sara. A lot of food for thought there and for some discussion after this in relation to Colonel Tuino Sara reading the Commander RFMF speech, which includes a clear statement that we now have a national security issue when it comes to drugs and we need to move urgently, with some questions there in relation to RFMF's involvement, even in relation to usage of firearms, the legislative frameworks, and the mitigations, etc., that we can discuss further. Our final panelist for this afternoon, before we go into questions, is the Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Meli Wasawale. Naka.
Thank you, Vijay. I've been asked this afternoon to come and be a panel up here. I think they'll probably have to edit the program. But, thank you. From the DPP's office, we prosecute cases that are referred to us through police investigations, and when they're referred to us, it's either prosecuted in the Magistrates Court or in the High Court. We prosecute under the Illicit Drugs Control Act for cases of illicit drugs. Now, for the past few years, there has been some development in jurisprudence for illicit drugs control in Fiji, having seen that the tariffs have changed in the Court of Appeal and also from the Supreme Court on cases of cultivation and also on hard drugs. So with that being said, the illicit drugs is, the legislation as alluded to by the Attorney General, the penalty is quite high for life imprisonment or $1 million or both. So, just a few statistics from our end in terms of the illicit drugs that we've prosecuted. Now, these are, as I'm going to refer to it, this is cases that are referred to the DPP's office. And our numbers might differ with police in such in greatly. Our numbers would differ because only on cases that are referred to us we put the statistics for those. From 2017 to 2023, we've had 78 cases of unlawful cultivation of illicit drugs, 66 counts of unlawful possession of illicit drugs, 7 counts of unlawful importation of illicit drugs, 1 count of attempted importation, 6 counts of exportation, 2 counts of attempted exportation, and 6 counts of unlawful use of illicit drugs. It's for cases that have been referred to the DPP's office. The police prosecution have other cases as they prosecute as well under the Illicit Drugs Control Act. So, from our end, we've pushed for these matters, we've prosecuted these matters in the courts, we've pushed for higher penalties, we've got higher penalties as it is in terms of hard drugs and also unlawful cultivation. Right? So we continue to push on, right, with cases that are referred to the DPP's office. Right, from the prosecution perspective, is there a need for legislative reform? I mean, that's the importance of having stakeholders here to contribute and also see where we go to from here. Right? And for us at the DPP's office, we'll continue to push on with cases that have been referred and have been investigated by police. We're at the very deep end of investigation. Complaints are made, investigations are done, and we take matters that are brought to courts to prosecute before the High Court or the Magistrates Court. And then further, if the appeals are done in the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. We'll be happy to take questions. Vijay, thank you.
Thank you, Assistant DPP Bosawale. And there's quite a few issues that we'd definitely like to touch on. The acting Compol has given a lot of statistics. The people were wanting research and data. As we've heard from throughout the 3 sessions, we've discussed about the data that we've seen from the St. Giles Hospital, which is very worrying. It's already being stated that the St. Giles Hospital cannot accommodate. They are running out of space. They only have 85 nurses. They need 200 nurses just for that hospital. We have been talking since 2019 about action plans, and it's also come to light from the comments that are being made that we need to take action, and that's why that counter strategy needs to be confirmed as we move forward. Attorney General has made some comments in relation to that the government denounces the trade of drugs, and it needs to go forward with certain regulations, including the sale of substances like glue. The law is yet to come to Parliament. A bill is yet to come to Parliament. We have had discussions about drugs is our common enemy. Clear message from the Acting Commissioner of Police. And we are also talking about the community support that's needed, because you know, those who are here and those who are watching us on Fiji Village on live stream, that you can help police a lot in terms of sharing of information and fighting against drugs. The involvement of police officers with drugs, clear message that we have that issue, and they are being dealt with, and they have to follow the due process, and the officers caught, found guilty or convicted have been removed from the force. That remains an issue for the force, and that's something that needs to be dealt with. The drugs court, as we discussed, is something that is an issue that can be explored. Then we have the comments from the RFMF on the strategic involvement that's needed with the police. And then following on from there, about the DPP, as Mr. Vosawale is rightly pointed out, they're at the end of the process after investigations to take the matter to court, and they will only follow the law that is in place. So they cannot change the law. They will have to just follow the law and lay charges, and of course take the matter to court as prosecution. So the question that Honorable Attorney General raised by the Acting Police Commissioner and the RFMF commander's message is clear. Action needs to be taken now. Enough talk has taken place. As the Attorney General and the representative of coalition government, what are you planning to do? What is the government planning to do about this serious issue?
Well, the ministry responsible is the Ministry of Home Affairs and Immigration. That's why we're having this consultation. They cannot, they have to consult with other stakeholders outside the ministry, NGOs, and they have come up with strategies, hopefully, that will be implemented. Government commitment is in terms of make sure, one of the issues we understand there is no rehabilitation center. There's some discussion, hopefully, from this budget, there will be a rehabilitation center. For those at St. Giles, how shall we care for them? In terms of resources into the ministry, to the police, particularly to the narcotics unit. Without resources, they cannot do much. So it's really an issue of resource, and given the urgency of this matter, government is not going to turn a blind eye. Currently, we are in the consultation stage with the Ministry of Finance in terms of our budget, and I hope the ministry, their first line of consultation was this week with the permanent secretaries, probably the Commissioner of Police. The second line of consultation will involve ministers, where we will sit and look at some of these issues. After this discussion, of course, we'll sit down with the ministry and to make sure I'm going to support whatever they're going to ask for. In terms of drug court, there has been some preliminary consultation. I've had a discussion with the Acting Chief Justice. We have to be innovative, creative in terms of moving this. We're also dealing with the case management. As you're probably aware, some of the cases hanging in court can be 7, 8, or 9 years, some more. There's been constant case management meeting of acting CJ with the judicial officers. For the first time ever, may I say, a practical step has been taken by the acting chief justice to ensure that the judicial officers are accountable for the cases that they have. They look at the end of the month, there is a stats of your pending cases. And so we want to reduce the time frame. At the same time, we have to look at some of the logistics within the judiciary. We are open to discussion. As we had said, we'll listen. We'll take it out of this discussion. We are waiting the ministry to come to cabinet so that we can move forward. Everybody is prepared to help and assist the Fiji Police Force and other agencies. As said by our friend here, yes, we can combat this. United we stand, divided we fall.
Acting Police Commissioner, definitely you have issues within the force, and you have, as the Minister for Home Affairs, I spoke to him earlier this morning, and he said that the force, there's a lot of good and efficient, effective police officers. But there are few, what he termed as bad or even rotten officers who are causing a lot of issues within the force. How are you tackling that?
Thank you, Vijay, for the question. I will not rebut what have been reiterated by the Minister of Home Affairs, because this has been highlighted in the past in the media, and the general public knows that. Moving forward, as I've stated earlier, anyone that is found to be involved with drugs within the organization will continue with a due process that we have that ends up with the office of the DPP, And usually there's a stats that comes out every month. The DPP highlights that. Even police officers that are charged for offences, it's highlighted too in that. And we will not shy away from that. And as I've stated, somebody's involved, due process will go its way. If he's found guilty in the court of law, you have no place in the Fiji police force. Naka.
This is one of the issues, if you can address, and there's always been allegations, and you always go with evidence, no doubt, but the police officers tipping about drug rates. The community says we have spoken to police, and then when people go to the actual place, the tip-off is already received. The information about that when the big bust happened in Nandi, the recent ones, they started the operation started in Nosori on this side, and the officers went from this end to that end. That's what's being shared around in the public. Can you address that some of these things are happening where your loyal officers, or the ones who want to do the right thing, are also getting suspicious of other officers, and they're trying to do the right thing, but then they have to go from one division to the next without informing to ensure there's no leakages? Are those kind of things happening?
Yeah, thank you for the questions, Vijay. We will not rebut all those information there because it's all public information. It's already been highlighted in the media, and the challenges is there within the organization. But what we are doing is trying to identify who are these officers. As I've stated, once we identify these officers, but we need the credible evidence that police officers are passing information, then the due process will follow. And if evidence is against them, then will be taken to task to the court of law, and if they're found guilty, sorry, you have no place in the Fiji police force.
Just another question for you, Acting Compol. You have the Attorney General here. You have the Ministry of Home Affairs here. You have other security agencies here. What is the type of support, immediate support that you need now? Based on you saying that drug is our common enemy.
Thank you, Vijay. You know, support comes in many forms, and with other stakeholders that is out there. We have our role to play, especially in combating drugs. And we look at the legislations, we look at the support elements, and the capabilities that we have in order to fight the war against drugs. And a good example is our colleagues from the RFMF. And if we have intelligence before a raid is conducted, when there's arms are involved from the other party, so we engage the RFMF to assist us, especially when there's an suspicion on there's arms are involved, in order to safeguard the police officers that are going to conduct the raid. And for other stakeholders, I know the support that has been coming our way in regards to cases that are taken to court, or whatever support that we need, because we need to sit and further discuss in what other ways that the support can come our way. Because as I stated earlier, not only within the stakeholders within government, but out there also in the public, in order to support this fight against drugs. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Commissioner of Police. Now, to the RFMF Director Legal, Major Tino Sara. We know that the Commander's statement is very straight to the point, that it is a national security issue now, we need to act now. Some comments made, government is not acting, is only talking, and also some issues about the framework the RFMF can get into, in terms of the strategic involvement of the RFMF, including the use of firearms when needed. Now, I think everybody, when they hear the word firearms, you would definitely be thinking, when does that come into play? Can you please elaborate further on that?
Yes, Vijay, it's always a challenge when RFMF embeds with police in missiles or military in security operations. But the use of firearms are mainly for self-defense, for the defense of the police who are executing the law, and their property, or the RFMF, or everyone who's involving themselves in drug raids or operations against drug operations. And for the use of firearms, we have what we call the rules of engagement. So it is a security operation, police-led. It's not a combat operation where you distinguish or you eliminate the threat as soon as it appears. There are laws of engagement which are called rules of engagement. And in military and security operations, it's usually for self-defense. And there are principles behind the use of weapons, use of firearms in that context.
Just Honorable Attorney General, comments from the security agencies in this country. They definitely have said they need support. They need a clear direction on when the RFMF can come in, if it's some drug-related activities where they believe that firearms are involved, and for the safety of the police officers, if there's a need for their protection as well, and for RFMF to be engaged. Will this issue be urgently looked at?
Vijay, if I remember correctly, the military or probably the police have used weapons before. I can recall some times back there was some confrontation in Navosa where weapons were used. But then again, the information must be correct. If there is a great fear that the lives of the police officers and others are at risk, then because the other side have weapons, it's only fair to afford them that level of same protection. We stand ready. The ministry stands ready to work with the ministry, and that is the police and the military, and of course with the ministry. We are at the tail end. We're comforted by the fact that the strategy has been vetted, cleared, waiting to be tabled for cabinet for endorsement. Then from then on, you're probably going to see the task force form and how it is operationalized. Yes, sometimes it takes longer for government agencies to get things right. But we are talking, we are concerned, and thanks for the concern that has been expressed through FNU and of course through involvement of your company to articulate this issue. From the government side, it's committed. It's also to ensure that other agencies, ministries who has laws needs to be reformed to in line with how we combat drugs. They can also be encouraged that they should fast track those lines to be in line with the government's position on drugs.
Colonel Tuno Sara, you satisfied with the government's stand on that?
Yes, that's very encouraging. In fact, we've been assisting police for a long time, and I remember that incident very well, the Navosa one, and that was done in self-defense. And we intend to continue with that if the government allows us to operate with police, especially when there are firearms involved. I'm not trying to scare anyone here, but normally drugs and weapons somehow are good friends. Thank you.
I think that's addressed and will be captured in the counter strategy as we've been discussing to make sure that it's an action plan, and that's what we were talking about. The next issue is about drugs court, and Collie had discussed this, and he said there will be further discussions tomorrow. Ask from the security agency's perspective first, what do you think of the idea of setting up of the drug court?
Yeah, thank you, Vijay. Setting up the drugs court, it will fast track, especially all our cases that are currently pending out there. And this drug court will be specifically for drug offenses. And because most of the cases now, we take them to court, they are bailed, and they continue to reoffend. And that cycle, that vicious cycle continues. Police go in, do the arrest, and it goes back. But with this court coming in, it may streamline and fast track, and people are, convicted and they are taken into prison. So we are supportive too of it, and especially this setting up of this narcotics court in Nabalu.
Thank you. From the perspective of the RFMF, you're looking at definitely from your perspective, do you think that's a good strategy in relation to countering illicit drugs?
So I agree with the Commissioner of Police. As we mentioned before, the constitutional role is very clear. The police enforces the laws. That's their job. We support them in operations which might involve a danger to their lives. And that's what we've been doing in the past. Last week, I went over to Canberra to attend a course on rules of engagement, especially in military operations, domestic military operations, which we, in law of armed conflict terms, it's called MISO, or military insecurity operations. Even though I've spent a long time in the military, I wanted to understand fully the use of arms, especially when it comes to law enforcement. And that's why I took myself across and attended this week-long course specifically on the rules of engagement. Because I foresee us playing a part together to assist the police in an effort to curb the drug problem, not to conduct a coup or mutiny.
Thank you for that assurance. As the Colonel said, it's not to conduct a coup or mutiny, it's to assist the police. Now, Attorney General, you have said about the drugs court, if you can give your view.
Yes, initially when the ministry came over, I gave my full support, and that is the commitment from government. I've been having a preliminary discussion with the CJ. We're looking forward to the strategy to be adopted so they can move this. The other point that I want to mention is that two points. First, the decision of involving military to come in, that's the operational call by the police. They make the decision. And the second, military can also be involved without even arms. This is just some strategic thing about the military where they can be used where some situations. That's something where I said we have to be very innovative and creative when we address this. All parties must come on board. They have dealt with many situations that may need the mere presence may be just a deterrence to the community.
Just go ahead.
I'm forgetting a very important asset that the military has, which is the Navy. When we come to supply chain, and that is a very important asset that the RFMF has in this effort to curb the transporting of drugs on the high seas or the EEZ. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel, and that's part of my question in relation to supply reduction. Collie, you said you have the mechanisms available. These are discussions now. I think it's forward-looking, trying to get the drugs courts established. But my understanding also is that there needs to be a long-term rehab for those who are going into that system as well, not just going through the court system and then just being put in prison?
And I think it's important to clarify because, as I understand it, the drug court that Fiji is considering is a diversion mechanism, not necessarily a prosecution court. That's not where you would funnel people into a specialized prosecution court to be prosecuted for drug charges. So just in terms of clarification, as I understand it, and if I'm incorrect, then that certainly can be corrected. But I think the resources are there in terms of technical assistance, that could be provided to support this, to support the setting up establishment of a drug court. I think tomorrow the conversation with the entity can begin that process in terms of what resource and also what technical assistance might be there to establish a drug court. And I certainly would encourage Fiji to take advantage of those of that assistance, and we'll be happy as well to facilitate that assistance as that move forward. But again, it's certainly one that really does need to take into consideration that there will be resources needed to support the establishment of such a court. The other aspect of this is, how extensive will this be within the country? Obviously, you have, different, the west, you have the north, you have other parts of the country. So there would be the consideration there as well in terms of establishing that around at least calendars, dockets around the country. But those are details that can be worked out. But we certainly available to support and to facilitate those further conversations around.
We definitely need laws for any changes in terms of if we go into the drugs courts, assistant DPP, if it's for long-term rehab instead of putting people in prison.
It's not really long-term rehab. It's not a long-term rehab because, the effectiveness of drug courts has shown that people can recover from addiction. Is something to be made clear, and as long as someone is cycling through a drug court, complying with treatment, getting access to treatment, and so on, the chances for that individual coming out on the other end in a way that they can function in society without being addicted to drugs is very high. But as the saying goes, relapse is part of recovery. And so people will relapse. And so you have clinical relapse and you have criminal relapse. The one that you certainly want to try to avoid. You want to avoid both, but you certainly want to avoid people criminally relapsing, because then that has consequences in terms of, people, public safety and property crimes and that sort of thing. Because
the heads of the security agencies will be concerned about that.
Typically people who are addicted, typically engage in property type crimes, acquisitive crimes, stealing stuff to buy the drugs, and so on. So it certainly has shown, and of course those have to be contextualized within countries and so on. But it has shown very high success.
Can be handled carefully. Assistant DPP, your thoughts on that?
If the position is that we're just reforming just because we're establishing a narcotics court, then we need a more multifaceted reform. It needs to be a more multifaceted reform. If the UNODC's position is taken that rehabilitation and all of this is part of the...
That's not our position.
Right. If that is what they're suggesting to be part of it, then you'll have to probably make laws for that as well.
The laws have to be amended to suit
that.
And that will be a government decision on whether, because right now the Attorney General is saying you're trying to establish a drugs court so that it can quicken the cases in the system, not the system that Collie is suggesting.
Yeah, the thing is that as part of that effort, that's part of that process, you would want to do an assessment of your legal landscape to see whether or not...
Yeah. Well, that's exactly my question at that point. It's something Attorney General Cabinet will be discussing?
Yes, certainly. We heard about the multi-task force, so I assume from this discussion the ministry is going to spearhead, and out of those discussions, those are issues that will be discussed even before reaching cabinet.
Thank you, Honorable AG. And the other issues in relation to supply reduction, maintaining law and order, is where are the drugs coming from, the hard drugs. And the high seas, as Colonel Tino Sarra has said, there's a lot of activity allegedly going on that goes undetected. And then we've got cases like the one in Nandi, where you're getting the biggest bust in Fiji, and it's right there for a number of years. They say the house was under construction for a number of years. So just asking from the Fiji Navy's perspective, how much work does the Fiji Navy do with the police, and is it part of a strategized action plan already? Colonel Tunosar.
Last week, Seaport management team comprising of all the key stakeholders. It was a 2 weeks course funded by UNDP, and out of those 2 weeks there was an exercise, and there was a successful some confiscation of marijuana in a yacht. So it has just started again. You expect a lot of this to take part in the future.
Acting Compol, and what type of strategic alliances you formed with agencies like Fiji Navy?
Yeah, thank you, Vijay, for the questions. And, apart from Fiji Navy, we have the Australian Federal Police, the New Zealand Police, and other law enforcement agencies throughout, like USA, and, as I've stated, other law enforcement agencies. This is when we share informations in regards to suspected drugs that is on its way to Fiji, through a transit, and before it goes out again to another destinations. And if that information comes our way, then probably we link up with our colleagues from the Fiji Navy in regards to assist us, because whilst we look within the waters certain kilometers from the sea line, from the seashore to certain kilometers out, but the Navy has their jurisdictions out into further into the EEZ. So we usually share that information for them to assist us, and we continue to work together. And as I give you an example of this big 2 bus that came our way, and this one was destined from Mexico, coming to Fiji, and it's on its way towards Australia. But through information sharing, the intelligence was already there that the amount of drugs that was heading towards Fiji. But our police officers, through their normal routine arrests that they made out on the street, that information was gathered from the Eastern Division that is in Nausori. So instead of passing that information to the specialist unit that usually go and does, we allowed our Eastern Division cross-border. You can go across and do these raids, and we were successful. And once this find was established, then we look at the intelligence, and we do confirm. The intelligence too had confirmed this. But in regards to our counterpart from the Navy, we usually share information, and if we don't have that capability to go out further into the sea, then we can use their resources to assist us. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other question, I think, is in relation to pharmaceutical companies, because this has come to light over the past few years, where there is an individual even imprisoned in New Zealand, in Auckland prison. He was connected to pharmacies here in Fiji, and the questions that are arising, and even the Ministry of Home Affairs have put that as one of the issues here. of monitoring of pharmaceutical companies in Fiji. We know the laws were amended where one individual could have more pharmacies or outlets in the country. What is being done now, because when the ingredients start coming for different outlets, and then the situation arises where meth production starts taking place within country. Honorable AG, are you looking into this issue?
Yes, that's been raised to the Ministry of Health, something to discuss whether they can take out that particular provision or the whole lot. That's something that we constantly do, VJ, review, overview what has been done. Let me just say, cite an example. One was the Mahogany Act came into being when there was no parliament sitting. And consultation with the ministry, and that's the position we have made, that it needs to go out. And that's a similar stance we're going to take in this approach, but we have to consult with the Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health has to advise us. Is it only particular provisions or the repeal of the whole act?
Acting Police Commissioner, are you concerned about, because the drugs at times you found meth labs in country. It's not just pre-produced packs coming through.
Yeah, Vijay, yeah, it's quite concerning, yeah, because these substances, you can buy it off the shelf, and people go to Google and do their own methods of cooking these things, and they start to sell it on the street. Either they con the people that are buying it that this is actually meth, but people still go for it. Yeah, but during the tests that we carry out through our forensics, it will determine if it's real drugs or meth or it's otherwise. But it's quite concerning, yeah, because it's already available there, and people just go to Google and see how best they can make it out. Naka.
Looking forward to the coalition government looking at this issue too, because this is expected to escalate if not dealt with quickly. Now we'll quickly get the roving mics out, Choeli, for those who have questions. Just getting the police, Fiji Police Force psychologist Nicholas Fuata, he was saying that there's some harm reduction issues that can be addressed, and panelists stay on for a few minutes while you may have questions to one of you as well. Thank you.
My question is on legislation reform. I do not know how you will be able to answer this. For the students in school who are found in possession or dealing illicit drugs, because what we have seen in the past for students who are found to be selling marijuana, for example, they are taken by the police and sometimes they are taken to court. And sometimes sooner or later they can become criminals if they go through the juvenile, to the juvenile centers. My question may be to the AG or even DPP. How is there any provision in the laws that can protect these children instead of criminalizing their behavior? Or is there any way, alternative way? Thank you, sir.
Right now, criminal responsibility is at 10. There is a criminal justice bill about to be tabled in Parliament. There's some discussion of raising it to 14. There is some concern expressed by the police and the DPP. So we expect will be pushed through the parliamentary committee so that these two groups can present their views. There is a concern from the Ministry of Women. There is also concerned, we also need to hear doctors as whether someone who is 14, 18, capable of, but the law is it's 10. And they will be next week bill table in Parliament to be put through the Select Committee for more discussion. That's where we expect consultants groups to present their views in terms of the age of responsibility. Eh?
Thank you, Mr. Naisele. And Mr. Naisele is the acting director of the Substance Abuse Advisory Council under the Ministry of Education. They deal with all the students, and as I said, they are only here in Nasinu, and there's no other facility outside of Nasinu in Fiji, although there have been more cases of students, 3,500 cases last year of drugs in schools, and that's why he's concerned about how we can deal with that, and hopefully in that action plan that can be covered. Any other thoughts, questions?
Sorry, I would like to say thank you to AG and Police Commissioner as well as the RFMF for being here today. Thank you again, Police Commissioner, the Acting Police Commissioner, on the statistics that you have currently just revealed to us today. And it is rather a very alarming rate that we are currently hearing it from you now. And it would only have been better that we would work together. My name is Ulaya Swangaitono Tikoro, and I'm currently the General Secretary for the National Youth Council. And we would like to thank the gentleman that is seated here with us, Remesio. If you could just kindly stand, sir. Mr. Remesio actually hosted the re-establishment of the National Youth Council in his village in Ranikula. So we would like, let's give another round of applause to him. Thank you so very much, sir. Now, my question goes to both the commander for the RFMF as well as the acting police commissioner. When it comes to the community policing committee that you currently have right now, the acting police commissioner, what are some of my question rather is very straightforward. Have you ever recruited anyone from within the community policing committee to be included? These are the ones that are currently working with the community and around the community, especially dealing with drugs, who knows the people very well. And have you ever given a quota or within your recruitment processes to include them in your program? And if the military is also prone or open to having such a program into the Matu Valley is there, but would you be able to recruit people from within the community that are focusing in this area that may be able to assist in your the combat of what we're currently talking about, supply reduction? And also, if you do have any high-level discussions on youth, hearing that you're talking about the age group within the 18 to 35 age limit, there are civil society leaders or reps that are currently here with us. Are they in your task force? And my third question is, what about the monitoring and evaluation?
Can we just keep it at that? The rest you can give it to Choeli. I'm sure he'll get it.
Yes.
Okay. He'll get that answer. Thank you very much.
Just on monitoring and evaluation, on progress, if there's
community policing and inclusion of youths in your task forces.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. You know, when we do our recruitment, it's not specifically to a particular area or particular province. It's throughout Fiji. And community policing, what we do, you know, we plant informers that can pass on to us that information. Sometimes these informers, they do not want to be known. They would prefer to remain as is, where is, because of the risk of passing that information. And sometimes we respect their decision also, in order to maintain that secrecy or information that continues to come our way. But in order to recruit somebody from a particular area through community policing, probably we could look into that in the future, but it depends on the individual if he or she wants to join the organization, especially just for drugs. But if you join the Fiji Police Force, you don't look at drugs alone. You look at the various aspects of policing, and you won't be there at your particular province. If you are joining from the province of Singatoka, probably will put you somewhere else. And that's why some of them prefer to remain as is where is, so that information can continue to come our way to police. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas?
Yeah, that's food for thought for us. I think it'll depend on the degree of our involvement with police. But thank you for that information. I'm hearing it for the first time, and it's good for us. We shall remind ourselves if we, in the future, if we really are going to involve ourselves when the strategy comes in. Why not?
So that's from the RFMF and police in relation to the strategy, Home Affairs Ministry and Honorable AG. That's the security agencies saying again they are waiting for your strategy, which I've been told will be ready by July. Choeli from Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, Nicholas, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Nicholas, former psychologist for the corrections and current psychologist for the Fiji Police Force. And I think when we deal in with the issue of drugs, we need to look at the psychosocial aspect of the family. So if you do a research on all youths who are vulnerable, not only to drugs but to crime, it's similar to a report in 2007, the UNICEF report that shared that these homes had no fathers. And so, as a psychologist, I propose we have almost like a family rehabilitation on how to raise children and how to remain married. And you know, children's psychological construct is based on the marriage. And you know, children suffer in life if they are not trained to be prepared for the world. And the parents' duty is to prepare the children for the real world. And that's where most of our problems are. We have a lot of broken families and fatherless homes. I worked as a psychologist for the corrections. And you know, Mother's Day, we have all the mothers coming in. Father's Day, only few fathers come and visit. That's the issue in our country right now. We need a total rehabilitation of how to build strong, long-lasting relationships in our country. The wealth of the Itoke is building strong relationships. No muyaw na vewekani. And this is one area I think government needs to spend a lot of time. I'm willing to spearhead this. Because I've done this work for 20 years. Drugs, drug addiction, violent crimes, I deal with all of this. And it boils down to the way the child was raised, the type of father the child had. And so we have the psychological framework in our culture to address this. We need fathers to go back to their homes, raise their children well, and love their wife, so that our children will be stable. That's my answer for you today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicholas, and he's done a lot of good work with the Fiji Corrections and now with the Fiji Police Force. And as part of the action plan, as we round up things here, I just want to remind everyone before we finish off, there was a lot of discussion today that all hands need to be on deck. All hands need to be on deck, including the RFMF, which RFMF has said they want to be in it to ensure that the national security concern is appropriately addressed. Of course, within the legislative framework that should be all set out by the government of the day. So we look forward to those discussions happening, and that is expected to happen tomorrow. We also have the issue in relation to what the Minister for Home Affairs had said. History is not only a study of the past, but an explanation of the present. How did we get here? We have to ask ourselves the questions. It's not blaming anybody, it's just how did we get here? But we cannot stop there. We have the stats, we have the research. Acting Compol has highlighted the high numbers, other numbers have been given. We have to make sure we act now. The other comment that was made very boldly by many people in the room, dialogue is not enough. we've had enough dialogue. It must be followed by action. And that action needs to go now. We as a country need to act before we look at more figures come 12 months from now. We look at more figures and we'll just sit in the room again and say, these are shocking figures. That's what was said in 2019 at USP. The Lodhala document was established, Leadership Fiji led initiative. 2020, almost the same action plans, and then as I read out some action plans, they continue to be there, but they have not been actioned. We talked about Vanua partnership, Dranikula village, Serua, 25 villages, the Turangani Yavusa, he needs to be congratulated. Remesio Garau. 25 villages, they took it upon themselves with drug-free world. They're making a difference themselves in Serua. Community initiative. And he is ready to talk to any other Vanua representative who is right here to make sure things happen for the rest of them. That has been assisted through the UN Office of Drug and Crime, and that kind of action needs to continue. That pilot program has already started. The Archbishop, His Grace Peter Lloyd Chong, again he asked why? Why have we reached here? And what is the problem? We need to get to the root of the problem and quickly, because it is already damaging us. It has been termed as the evil of the society. And we need to act now. He also said that soon after this, he will be getting all the churches together to ensure that things happen. That we do not continue to sit, as he said, he's gone to many dialogue sessions, action has not come out of it. So again, we will ensure that this is recorded clearly for action to be discussed, to be implemented tomorrow. On day 2, when this session, it will be a closed session, made up of decision makers to act on it. On harm reduction, that panel discussion that we talked about, we used to have reported HIV, new HIV cases, 100 cases a year. Talking about reported cases. Last year it jumped to 415 new HIV cases. Those are dramatic increases. And as Dr. Rachel Devi confirmed, based on the stats that are coming through this year, the number of HIV/AIDS cases in the labs, 25% through injectable drugs. It's already here, 1/4 of them. Prior to that, majority of them were through sexual transmission. We have issues in relation to Bluetoothing, where people are sharing needles, sharing of blood and resulting in increasing in cases. Chemsex, worrying concerns on the ground. We had Dr. Balram from St. Giles Hospital confirming that the inpatients, drug-related, gone up from 20 to 30 cases a month, and that time the highest list of cases was alcohol. Now it's 103 for January, that's inpatients only, and the list topping that is methamphetamine and marijuana. So St. Giles, as I said, cannot cope even with their nurses. He said, but when I asked, how are you coping? He said, I don't even have enough nurses. We have a volatile situation. I need 200 nurses just for St. Giles. I only have 85 nurses. So how can we have a drug rehab center if our only psychiatric hospital is not fully serviced and facilitated as it should be? Those are some of the things we have to put into the action plan and make sure that they are taken on board. The denouncing of the trade of drugs by the coalition government through the Attorney General is welcome, And as this last panel has said, that we need to act, and we need to act quickly, we need to act now. So as we finish off day one of this consultation, we'd like to thank our panelists for taking time out. I know some of you had prior meetings, launches to attend, that you prioritize this based on the national security issue at hand, the enemy, the common enemy that's staring at us, and the need to act urgently. I'll just finish off by giving the floor to the Ministry of Home Affairs, Choili Rokondaveta. Discussions held with this panel, and those who are watching on live stream, those who are in the auditorium today, on the assurance from the Ministry of Home Affairs to ensure that this is not just a Talanoa and that it's followed by action. Thank you.
WVJ and the panelists. Yes, from the ministry, as alluded to by the Honorable Minister in the morning, we have a draft strategic document. However, this Talanoa session will really help enhance it. And we have rapporteurs, Dr. Annie, who's capturing the outcomes of discussion today. So tomorrow we will basically have a closed session. The same participants today we will move to the gym, the first floor, to try and map out. We have the strategy, so we try and map out the 12 months action plan that is urgent. We prioritize the urgent ones, and then we will build from that. So what are the tangible action plan that we would like to focus on in the next 12 months. So that will be guided by the forum and also regarding today's discussion. I think that's all from the ministry, Vijay. Nah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rokondaveta. And just before you finish off also, in terms of the younger generation, there were questions asked. So we've got UNESCO already working with Substance Abuse Advisory Council and looking at the curriculum and ensuring that the other issue about media awareness and campaigns that needs to be escalated and as quickly as possible to ensure it is hitting the community in all languages, on all platforms, to ensure that the fight continues. Thank you again, and we thank you those who are watching on live stream. Tomorrow's session will be a closed session, but definitely as soon as the counter strategy plan is out, we will be sharing that publicly with the people, and then we expect the Attorney General and the Minister for Home Affairs, Acting Police Commissioner, the Republic of Fiji Military Forces, the DPP's office, to come out strongly to talk to the people following all the discussions and the confirmation on the action plan. Vinava Levu, and have a great afternoon.
Sure. Thank you for all you do. Thank you so much.